Hey y'all, welcome back to the Power and Lifting Podcast. I'm your host, Solana Lewis. Today, Kristen Dunsmore and I talk about mentality going into a meet, but also talk about just being prepared for a meet. Now, if you're a newer lifter doing your first or second meet, this would be a good listen. But also, if you are an avid competitor and you want some ideas of just what we do to mentally prepare for meet day, like a week out for that whole week going into a meet, this could also be a great listen for you. Just a little bit of a warning. At one point, we do mention edibles and some other quote unquote drugs. We are in no way recommending that you ever use these things. Okay, they're just things that are mentioned, especially as coaches. We talk about what our clients do and just how we help them out. So anywho, if you like this podcast, if you are an avid listener, please do leave an actual review if you listen on Apple Podcasts. It helps so much, y'all. We have not had a review in quite a few months. I think we're actually pushing like over 6 months of not having a new review. So if you do leave a review, we will shout you out on the podcast, read it out loud with your actual username, and we really, really do appreciate it. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive into today's episode. All right, y'all. We're back again with another episode of the Power and Lifting Podcast. What's up, Kristen?
Not much. How are you doing? Especially after traveling to the Sheffield. We have to talk about that a little bit. How's your jet lag?
So now I'm fine. I was not okay for like 2 days. It was really just like I needed 10 hours of sleep a night for 2 days. Now it's fine.
Yeah. Did you get sick at all?
I did. Okay, it was like basically, I think it was sick from lack of sleep because I
Yeah.
came back just like feeling like it was like a head cold, but it was one of those things where I was like, if I just sleep for a long time, I think I'll be fine. Like, I don't think I need medicine. I
Yeah.
need to go to bed. So like, yeah, I had a night rest, slept for like 10 hours straight, then I did it again, and I was great. I needed medicine. So
Yeah. I feel like anytime that I've ever traveled for a meet, I've always gotten sick afterwards, like clockwork, every single time. And it's probably number one, just being around like 1,000 people and you're just in this convention center all together. But then yeah, just the traveling and the stress and the lack of sleep and the excitement that goes on. And then you come home and there's just this like all this energy that you had, and now you're like,
yep.
now I don't know what to do with myself. I
Your
don't know what
body's
to do
like,
with
go
my
to bed.
time.
Go to
Yeah,
bed.
I'm just gonna sleep for 3 days.
Oh my God. But the way I did it too, I made the travel longer because I went with a friend who lives in Washington, D.C., and I'm in New Jersey. So I
Yeah.
drove 4 hours and then we took the flight. And it was a 6 hour flight to Iceland, a short layover, like really short, and then a 3 hour flight to get to London, and then a 3 hour
Hmm.
train to get to Sheffield. And it was such a short trip. It was great. I loved it. But the trip was so short. Like we get there on Friday. We started traveling Thursday, get there Friday, and then we were
Uh,
already on our way back by Monday. So like it was just so much of the travel. And then the train back
yeah.
was an extra hour for some reason. So it was like a 4 hour train, then a 3 hour flight, then a 6 hour flight, and I had to drive 4 hours. I was just like, by the time I was done, I was like, I can't function. Like,
Did you do any sightseeing or anything right there? Or did you just stay in Sheffield the entire time?
we did a little bit. So me and my friend, Sheffield was like 2 days. It was like Friday and then Saturday.
Hmm.
Sunday, we traveled to London early and spent like probably 5 hours in London. So we went to Notting Hill, which is like the really colorful street with all the shopping. We
Yeah.
went to see the Buckingham Palace.
Oh,
Somewhere
fancy.
else. Oh yeah, we went to Camden Market, which is literally just Chinatown, New York City. Like literally,
Yep.
that's where we went.
Yeah.
Chinatown, New York City. I didn't know
Yep.
what it was like though. And we got some food. Everyone's right. London food is very mid. Like there was no. We were told of some good restaurants to go to kind of last second, but they were like fancy sit down, you need a reservation. But like in general, the food was very mid.
So my and whoever's listening, if you're Peep Spence, I'm really sorry. They don't know what salt is. That is what I've learned.
Yep, yep. London and Iceland as well. Just to be clear.
But they probably come to the US and they're probably like, holy, this is so much salt. Like, oh, and I think we're just so used to having a lot of sodium in our foods. And so when we go someplace else that doesn't use as much sodium, it just tastes very bland to us because they also don't seem to use a lot of spices either.
Yeah, it's a combination. It's not just salt. It's like, here's your food, and we looked at salt and we believe that by looking at it, somehow there's flavor in this food. And I'm like, guys,
Or it's
what?
like, I don't care, you guys are tourists, you're gonna eat it anyway.
Exactly. But besides London, when we did our flight back, when we went to Iceland, we did a 16-hour layover. So the goal was to try to see Northern Lights and to try to go
Ah,
to the Blue Lagoon, right? Which is like the outdoor
yes.
lagoon, whatever. And two things are funny stories. Number one, Northern Lights, that sucked because it got cloudy right when we got there. I'm talking, everyone said if you were here an hour ago. And I'm like, wow, that's so defeating. So we drove around for 2 hours, could not find lights. Then because of the volcanic activity, Blue Lagoon got shut down for that day. So we really just walked around Reykjavik. But what was funny, we went to like a corner store. It was called like something 11, basically a knockoff 7-Eleven. I think it was like 411, like random. It was like random numbers that were basically the same thing. And we told the guy, we're like, we're so bummed we can't go to Blue Lagoon. And he's like, oh, I would never go there. I've been there. And he's like, we're like, why? And he's like, listen, go to this other lagoon because the Blue Lagoon, you know how it's white and milky water? We're like, yeah. He's like, so I went with my friends, and like, you know how you reach down, it's supposed to be clay, and people put the clay on their face because it's supposed to have like good like stuff for your skin. We're like, yes. He's like, we reached down, pulled it up. He's like, the amount of like pubic hair and nasty stuff in that water is repulsing. And we're like, really? He's like, people have sex in there like 4 or 5 times a day. We witnessed it. We literally witnessed people having sex in the water.
That's
And he's
probably
like, I was like, okay, I'm not that mad that I couldn't rub someone's liquid children on my face. So I think
But
I'll
you
live.
know what? That's why I'm always hesitant. So if I travel somewhere, it's like, yeah, I always want to go do the touristy stuff, right? A little bit. But like when something like that, when you're going to some hot spring or Blue Lagoon and everyone's in there and they're rubbing that shit all over their face, they're probably pissing and shit. You do not know what is going on in there. As a local, I would probably not go in there either, but they probably have these little like secrets that the locals know about, or like these
Yes.
are where this is going to be pubic hair free and child free. But you just gotta ask, and that's kind of like what
No,
I've learned is always make
yeah.
friends with a local when you're in another country because they will show you like just a whole different side of a country that you would never know existed.
100%, because on the way back we found someone who was going to the States, like near us, like near New Jersey. And like we were gonna do blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, we should go see like a Broadway show. And I was like, you have to go a day of, 3 hours early, you'll get a ticket half off. And she was like, oh my gosh,
Yes.
this is the local stuff people tell you. Like this is the kind of
And you
information I
don't,
need. I'm like,
yeah.
yeah, like you will spend $300 less and get a front row seat if you go the day of.
Yeah, it's so crazy. My sister, her a friend of hers like works in the airline, and there's one day we were trying to like, we're trying to go back to San Diego, and there's one like in the morning and then one in the evening, and our flight was in the evening. And I was like spent. I'm trying to like get the fuck out. I'm like, I'm over this. I want to go home. And so I'm looking and it's like, well, if you want to change your flight, it's like $150. And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna do that. So my sister's like, no, all we have to do is just go to the airport early. So as if we were going on to this flight that we're supposed to, that we're wanted getting on for an extra 150, and just go on standby. And so we got on that flight and it was fine. And we paid $0.
And I didn't even know that because I never did it or tried it. So there you go.
So that's another TikTok secret that I've learned apparently.
Boom. Y'all just got the real
Boom.
goods. All
Boom.
right, Kristen, what are we talking about today?
So what are we talking about today?
We're talking about basically being mentally prepared for meet day and like also what we do as coaches to prepare our
Yeah.
athletes for meet day.
And going into more, yeah, like the physical, how you physically prep someone or prepare them for the meet day, and then kind of the mentality, because we all know that we turn into little psychos the week of a meet.
Yeah, it's like everything was fine, but now it's coming up and now full blown panic and you forgot how
And
to
it hits
squat. You don't know
you.
how that you need to put your singlet on. You're like,
Oh
I
my
almost forgot my
God.
socks. It's just like, what the hell? Like you were fine.
Do you know that not my first meet, but my first nationals, I was so nervous that when I walked up, and I think it was my second deadlift, I forgot to put my belt on.
Not shocking. I mean,
It's not shocking, but it's funny because it's just like you get so in your head and you're so like crazy, that it's these little things you don't think of, like, oh, I should, probably wear a belt because I'm about to max out my deadlift.
yeah. Or I remember seeing Jasmine Penn. I think it was her meet to qualify for her first ever national. So she was like new, but like everyone was
Yeah.
like looking at her because I was like, who the hell is this person putting up these numbers? And there's a video of her running away from the deadlift platform because she forgot to put on long socks and she had like 30 seconds left. And I'm like, that's a perfect example of like I think it was her first or second meet, and she's like,
Yeah,
oh, I
yeah,
forgot, but like she had them in the back, but you're not thinking
yeah.
about it because you're like a mess on meet day.
Yeah. And that's, I think, I mean, what we can kind of head into is kind of the importance of being prepared
Yes.
before. And as I guess you've done it multiple times, you get better. I still do stuff that I forget. Like I've still like have forgotten to check my rack height the night before and like showed up on meet day and they're like, what's your height? And I'm like, oh shit, you know? So I still get a little airheaded during meets sometimes. It happens, but that's why you have a handler, because they're supposed to be your voice of reason. So when you're acting all cray cray, you got this person to be like, hey, Kristen, you remember to check your rack height. What's your body weight? Did you check it, in the morning? How much have you been drinking? When did you cut out your water? Like, if you're water cutting, whatever, like keeping you on track, because
Hmm.
like when you're in a competition mode like that, it's like you're so focused on just the competition itself that anything else just kind of goes out the window in a sense. And so that is one reason what I would say it's super, super important to have a coach and a handler ideally.
I fully agree with that, even for your first meet, because people ask me that often, like, "Oh, do I really need a coach or a handler for my first meet?" And I'm like, I will say yes every time. People want to argue with
Yeah.
me. Oh, it's your first meet. It's not a big deal. Like you just put the weights on yourself and you warm yourself up. It is because you're gonna panic, and there's a lot to think about on meet day, such as yes, you show up and what's the first thing you need to do. But you have to know they're gonna call your name, so you gotta get there on time, or else you have to wait until they go through everybody else's weigh in before you can weigh in. People don't even know that, right? And then
Hmm.
once you weigh in, do you have a rehydration or eating plan? Even if you're not cutting weight, like you have like eat now. You have to eat right away, because if you don't, well, I think you should eat right away. If you don't, like you're not gonna be that hungry when it's time to warm up for squats. And then it's like, well, what am I gonna do? Like force feed myself as I'm warming up?
Yeah.
No, it's like eat as soon as quick as possible. Somebody needs to
Or
tell you that.
eat or bring food, because if you're
Oh
thinking
yeah.
about it, for me, it's like I've gone to meets where, if I mean a short meet is probably like 3.5 hours, right? Like the
Yeah.
shortest meet maybe, where it's like the Sheffield Arnold, where there's 8 competitors. It's short, which is still kind of long, relatively speaking. But if you're in a local meet and they have 2 sessions and there's 16 people who don't know what they're doing, um, I've been at meets for 8 hours before.
Yep.
And if you show up at a meet without any food or any drink, like that is a big mistake. And these are probably things that you normally wouldn't think of. Like you're just going to go and you're going to squat and you're going to bench and you're going to deadlift, and then that's that.
Yep.
But there's these little things that go into it that is going to make the process so much more much easier just because you are prepared for it. And I think the biggest mistake that most lifters will make, especially newer lifters, is not coming in prepared, not reading the rule book, not knowing the commands, not realizing that, you can't just go to the bathroom whenever you want to and expect them
Yes.
to wait for you on the platform while you're in the back room doing your thing. So having someone like a coach and a handler is really I should say a good coach and handler, because there's
Yes.
also been some bad ones too, is going to be night and day.
It's gonna be a game changer. Even sticking to like meat day, like okay, cool. So we got the food, right? And I always say bring more than you think you need. Bring a lot of carbs, bring a little bit of protein, keep the fats low, bring a lot of hydration, water, water, water. And then if you need caffeine, people be forgetting caffeine. I'm like, you're gonna need caffeine. I think most people. Some people don't, but like most people do. Bring like twice what you think you'll need, so you just have it just in case. Like for all you know, you're gonna squat and then deadlift 3 hours later. You might need more again. So, but even besides all that, okay, great. Now it comes to warming up, and people don't realize you have to like time the warm ups to make sense for when you go out on the platform.
That's
That's like the biggest
huge.
part, in my opinion, of handling,
That
besides
is,
having the game day plan.
oh, yes. Let's talk about how you warm up. So, most of our listeners probably understand powerlifting, have probably competed before, but you can't just like warm up and then go on the platform, right?
Yeah.
You have to time it because you might be the first person on the platform. And if that's the case, your last warm up better be like, you know, 5 minutes before they call your name, where if you're still in the process of your warm up and then they call your name and you're not done warming up, it's like you're just going out there cold and just
Cold.
like closing your eyes, crossing your fingers and praying that it works. If you're later on in a meet, right? And then you think that you got time, and then all of a sudden it's like you're in the hole and you're like, oh my God, I still have 3 warm-up sets I have to take. I'm not ready. And usually the easiest way that I always will tell people is if you have 1 minute per lift, right?
Hmm.
Give or take, because some people might take 20 seconds on the platform and then they just run off. But then you also have to account for people changing plates and whatever. But say give or take around 1 minute. So if you are 7 people out, you essentially have 7 minutes, give or take, before you have to hit your attempt. So you want to kind of plan your warm-ups with that in mind. Obviously, there's some caveats to that, but like in a nutshell, I think that's the easiest way for most people to understand, is to, count by how many people are ahead of you. And if you
Yep.
have 3 attempts or 3 warm-up sets or however many, and you take 3 minutes in between each attempt, that means 3 minutes, that'll probably be around 3 people. So
100%. I think what really helped me was shout out to Matt Gary, his game day manual. It just really
Matt,
spelt it out for me because
yes,
I always knew, like I always was making sure my lifters were warmed up on time. But what he
yeah.
does, what he said was, okay, so let's say you're number one in a flight of 10 people. That means essentially 9 minutes between each attempt, right? Give or
Yeah.
take. So you can just work backwards from there. Okay, let's say you have 4 warm-ups total, not including like the bar by itself. Okay, so
Yeah.
you want to do one like warm up like every 9 minutes and be done 9 minutes out. So if the meet starts at 10, you want to be done by 9:51, and
Mhm.
it takes you 9, 18, 20, 36 minutes essentially, which is the time you need to warm up. And there you go.
Yeah.
Boom. Now just figure out exactly what times those are and then go. And obviously, if it's a
Yeah.
little bit less than 9 minutes, in that case, not the end of the world, but that's just an easy way to be like, okay, it should be around these times. You cannot possibly not be done on time if you do
Yes.
that, unless they start to meet late. But pay attention to that.
If anyone wants an in-depth explanation from someone who probably knows powerlifting inside and out, game meet day handling, 100% get Matt Gary's book because he's been in it for so long. He's handled probably the best and strongest lifters in the world, and he can provide some insight that, even I overlook at times. So that is one reference that I would highly, highly recommend for people who are interested in more game day coaching.
Yes. And then one more thing I'm gonna throw in. Let's say there's multiple flights, right? You're flight B.
Mm,
You need to pay attention to how fast your flight is going. It
mm,
typically goes lighter weight lifters to heavier weight. So
yep.
flight A may have 10 lifters. They could be done with the whole first attempt in like 8 minutes if it's literally
Yeah.
people doing between 50 to 120 kilos.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that takes two
Yeah.
seconds to load. Hurry up and go, go, go. Like, you know what I mean? Like that can be real quick. So pay attention because I have
Hmm.
seen people panic and say, how the hell am I 5 out? I'm like, bro, like, did you pay attention? They had like 48-kilo lifters out there. It's fast. Like,
And they all
go.
lifted the same weight, so they
That,
didn't have
yes,
to change
that too.
anything.
Like, all of a sudden they're on their attempts. It's been 20 minutes. Like, yeah. Like,
Yeah. And these I think are just you kind of learn it over time. I think the first time I ever did a meet, I will say I did not have a handler. I did not know I was supposed to have a handler. I didn't even know what a handler was. Now, granted, this was in like 2014. Um, and laugh now. I was so nervous for my first meet that I basically like lowballed every single attempt that I had. So on my third bench, when I went to put in my attempt, the judge or the lady who was putting in attempts told me no.
I don't understand. Me no say.
She said, well, because she was like, it's too light. Like, put some weight on the bars. So I was like,
Oh, I thought she meant like she just like was a jerk and was like, I'm not taking your number.
no, because I was so nervous that it was like all of my attempts were just so easy. Like my third attempt should have been like a warm up, but I was just
Oh,
so
okay.
nervous because it was my first meet and I didn't know what to expect. I knew nothing. They were even really nice because like, do as I say, not as I do.
Hmm.
And I did not read the rule book beforehand, and so I wasn't listening to the rack command. So when I took the squat and I took a step forward the guy command before I got the command, but it was a small local meet, and the guy like they gave it to me, but he was kind of like, "Hey, you need to be careful of that."
Yes.
So a lot of times, like especially in local meets, they're a little more generous because he should have red lighted me for that, but it was my first meet. They knew it. He just said, "Hey, next time, just wait for the command." Okay, fine. And then yeah, so my third bench, I put in the attempt, and the lady was like,
No.
"Nope, you're doing this." I was like,
I love this. I love this lady.
"Okay."
Question: Are you a referee? I don't remember.
No, but I want to be, and I guess I can say this because it's not really a secret. I want to start hosting meets in San Diego for Powerlifting America.
Okay, cool, cool.
And I think in order to do that, it would be important to have refereeing experience if I'm going to
Oh, I
direct a
think you
meet.
have to be a referee in order to direct a meet. Well,
Okay,
okay,
so
that's USAPL rules, so I actually have no idea whatsoever.
I'm sure it's pretty similar, but I think in order to be a good meet director, you should also have refereeing experience. And there's also no Powerlifting America meets in SoCal, so everything is in
Hmm.
NorCal right now. Um, and so if you want to go compete, you got to go to Arizona.
Yeah,
So
that's
my
fair.
goal is with the other 110 things that I am doing is I would love to to host a meet. Actually, Keiko's doing a meet, but is he in NorCal
Girl, you asking the wrong person. I have no idea where that man is.
or is he
I know who that
LA?
Sheffield. I got to watch him. I have no idea. But I will say the reason I was asking you. So you were saying sometimes the referees are nice, and,
Are you
and
a mean
I struggle.
referee?
No, I'm a
You're
very
mean.
fair. I'm extremely fair.
Okay.
First of all, not only am I fair, I get a lot of compliments from the lifters saying they were happy to see. I think they're just happy to see a woman in the front seat who's young. But
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Perfect.
I'm very fair, but I will politely teach you a lesson if you going to ignore this rules briefing. if you are a brand new lifter, and I said the rules. You come out here and you skip that rack command, no way in hell I'm gonna give you a white light. No way in hell. Like hell shall
Mhm.
freeze over before someone give you a
Yeah.
white light when
So
I
you're
saw you skip that
fair.
command. I'm
Yeah.
very fair, but I'm really never like the okay, I can't say never because every once in a while I'm like, oh, like something super tiny. Like for example, like if someone's knee looks like a little soft before we say start, I will tell them to lock it or else you're gonna get a
Yeah,
red.
be
But
like,
that's
"This is a
something small where
warning
it's like it's the
sign."
tiniest. It's not like they're
Yeah.
blatantly like bent over. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, if I try to get you, if I explain this to you, you're gonna like not even get your attention. You're not even gonna do your squat. You're gonna be so
Yeah.
confused because you look like a deer in headlights already. So I can be nice there, but like just
Yeah.
blatant stuff, like the command. I'm like, no, I said
To
red
be fair though,
way
I
later.
mean, this was so long ago. I'm pretty sure they did give a speech beforehand, but also I was a deer in headlights and so nervous that I wasn't even thinking.
Oh yeah,
So
but like that happens all the time though. Like for people
yeah,
just like that, and I'm like, yeah, I
and
see it all the time.
I mean, even experienced lifters, they'll like miss the rack command, and you're like, what? But it's just your brain, it like essentially goes on autopilot is the only way that I can explain it. And this is kind of where we'll get into like the mental preparation of it because you want to be so prepared that the only thing that you have to think about is your name is getting called, you're going on that platform, and you're going to lift. And that's all you
Mhm.
have to worry about, you know? And if you need something, you're thirsty, I mean, because I lose my water, I lose my Gatorade everywhere. It's like all over the back room. And my handler like, here, Kristen, it's right here. I got it for you. I'm like, thank you.
Yes. So yeah, I definitely want to dive into that the mental part really, really soon. But besides everything we just said, which is like the knowing the commands, like knowing that like you're weighing in, knowing you need to eat before you well probably should eat something, right? Which crazy people like don't bring water. Besides that, I would say to be prepared for the meet, just making sure obviously you have all your equipment and like you check to make sure that like don't forget your knee sleeves, don't forget like your singlet, like stuff like that. People just like forget to even like buy or even look at the robe like, oh, I need a singlet. Yes, like you need a singlet to compete
Yeah,
at
I
this
think
meet.
the only thing that's actually required, I think we said was a singlet and high knee socks. Those are the only things that are a requirement. Everything else is highly recommended. You don't need a belt. It's not required, but I would recommend a belt. I would recommend knee sleeves.
Yeah, and then like
Um,
t-shirt shoes. But yeah.
yeah, and that too. But also being careful because you can't just use any belt. You have to make sure that it's an approved belt or an approved singlet. Um, so even those things, like people have been training with, I don't know, those little Velcro wrap belts, and then they come in on meet day and we're like, yeah, you can't wear that. And then you don't have a belt, and then you're freaking out because you're like, well, I don't have a belt, I don't know what to do. Um, and you don't want to be in that situation. So the best thing that you can do is just be prepared as possible. And yeah, of course, there's always going to be some thing that probably like happens, but at least so long as you try to minimize that, it's going to make meet day as stress-free as possible. At least for you, probably not your handler, but at least for you.
Yeah, and that's again like the most important part, like especially if it's your first meet, please read the rule book because like what you just said, but like at USAPL, like you can now wear the Velcro belt. So like it just depends on the fed you're in.
That is another thing, is making sure that you're reading the correct rule book. And this is something that
Yeah.
I always have to, especially if I have lifters who are switching over from, say, USPA, and then they decide to do USAPL. And I'm like, well, you have to keep your foot down on bench. You can't be
Yep.
on your toes. You can no longer use a deadlift bar. Um, I think they use a 55-pound bar in some, but not all situations. But basically, like you're using the same bar for every lift. So not only do you have to read the rule book, but make sure you're reading the correct rule book for the federation that you're competing in.
100%. Okay. So mental preparation on meet day. So one thing that you already had mentioned is that the only thing you want to have to think about is like going on a platform and just lifting. And the way to be able to not be overthinking is to be extremely consistent in your setup when you're training. Like you should have the exact same setup and there should be no fiddling. I talk to my athletes about this all the time, the fiddling. Like there should not be, oh, we're at the squat bar and we go like, we are like staring at the bar and then we're like jerking the bar and then we're like getting the bar because
Looking
we're nervous
down, looking
and looking
up,
down,
looking
looking up
around.
to the right, to the left. Like, no. I'm like, first of all, if it takes you more than like 10 seconds, what are you doing? And I'm not like
Yeah.
timing it, but like, it shouldn't take that long. And it should be the exact same thing. Like, I can tell you what mine is right now. I don't think about it, but if I think about it, I grab the bar, right foot's in front, left foot's behind. The right foot goes first, left foot goes underneath. I scrunch my back up into the bar. I make sure my feet are good, so I might cushion forward a little bit more. Then I take my inhale and brace. Then I unrack it. And then I go right
Yeah.
foot, left foot, right foot, wiggle the feet to make sure we're good. I look up, I go.
There you
Okay.
go.
That sounded like a lot, but that takes me like 8 seconds. And the way I know that is I just look at my videos and make sure it looks the same every time.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't have to actually
Yeah.
think about everything I just said.
Yeah. And then every athlete, it's always funny when they're like maxing out and they have their own quirk.
I
So
love it.
Chelsea Savitt, smack her
Smack yourself in
face.
the face. Or Delaney doing a 20-minute dance solo, and you're like, you have 5 seconds left to start the sir,
Yeah,
sir.
like, bro, you gonna go or what? So, I mean, you have these little walkouts, but then you also have these little rituals that you
Yes.
do. And I would do those rituals. I mean, if you're warming up, I think that might be a little like too much. But as you're, peaking for a meet and you're getting ready for your top set and you're maybe it's a max or close to, do what you're gonna do in meet. If you're gonna smack yourself in the face in the meet, smack yourself in your face in the gym,
Yes.
like just you want it to be a ritual, you want it to be consistent. um so yeah, that would be one. Another thing is I always recommend is like do everything that you can beforehand. So usually in USAPL and PA meets, they will allow you to do a bag equipment check and rack heights the night before.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have the option to do it the night before, because like the day of, it's like a shit show. Everyone's trying to weigh in. Everyone who didn't get an equipment check the night before, didn't do their rack heights, are all trying to do it. And so it's just like everyone's everywhere, everyone's like panicking. Get everything prepared the night before, get it set up. So have it like set in your gym bag, everything that you want that night that you're going to bring, even your food. Like I'll, whatever drinks and juices, I have it in my bag in my refrigerator. And then all of my snacks I have. So all I have to do is like my morning ritual. I don't know if you want to hear it or not, if you care, but I do what I do in the morning, grab my shit, and I go downstairs. I wait for them to call my name. I weigh in, and then I'm good to go.
Yes. It sounds very simple. People don't do it, y'all. People don't do it.
It
So
can be simple. That's the thing, is it can be simple, but you just have to put in the effort to learn and to read about it. And there's a lot of info out there. I think we're giving some good info. Matt Gary, if you want to get like in depth into it, like his ebook is phenomenal. Um, I think even the powerlifting now guys, like there's a ton of information. You just have to pay attention.
yes, 100%. And one thing I was
You
talking,
know,
so I just did an episode. It'll drop right before this one. So if you guys heard it with Agatha, the winner of Sheffield, and
so
yeah,
excited to listen to that one.
yes, it was a good conversation. And one thing I asked her, like, how was like your mental, like going into the actual meet day? And she was
Yeah,
like, I was just sick of waiting. I was just ready to go. And she's like,
yeah.
you do all this training, but the last week you barely lift, you just are ready to go. And so my question for you, Kristen, what do you do when you're like, or tell your lifters to do maybe, when you're like a week out? And so obviously this is the boring week, like it's less intensity overall. Your workout sessions may take you 30 minutes
Hmm.
and you're just like have extra time and you're probably thinking about the meet a lot more. what do you do to help yourself mentally like get through that? Because to me, it's annoying. Like that week annoys me
Yeah.
until I actually compete. I'm annoyed.
I actually don't mind that week. Well, I guess because I've switched coaches since a while ago, but my training would be so intense leading up to a meet that by the time it came to the taper week, I was like, oh my God, thank God. Like, this is such a relief. Now my training is a little bit more sustainable. So I don't really have these intense, heavy, like peaking blocks and then this like huge taper.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more consistent. So, like you said, there's still a drop in volume, but usually my intensity is going to stay um it'll drop a little bit, but when I say a drop, it's dropping like 5-10%. Like you're still in the 85% range for singles, something
Hmm.
like that. So it's heavy, but not heavy enough where you have to like mentally psych yourself up for the lift. Maybe it's good for practice, but um I would say, yeah. So like the week of a meet now is more, it's not so much stressful. I'm not thinking about, oh my God, I gotta train and I gotta hit this top set today. It's okay, I gotta go in, I gotta do the work. And then I gotta do the other important things is making sure that I'm sleeping, and I'm getting in my 8 hours of sleep. And you should also be doing this throughout the year, but I feel like I'm extra diligent.
Yes.
The week of the meet is like I'm very on top of it. But getting in my sleep, making sure that my diet and nutrition is on point. If I'm cutting weight, I am making sure that I'm weighing myself the night before, first thing in the morning, because that way it will give me an idea of like how much weight I'm losing overnight. So I know that if I go to bed at this weight the night before and I'll probably wake up at the body weight that I want to be at. Um, and so again, a lot of it is just going through the motions. I will take a lot of walks and listen to podcasts or listen to music or listen to like the Calm app because they have these like LeBron James has this like mental, I don't know, speech that he gives or motivational
Ah, we
speech.
love the motivational speeches.
Yeah. And so it's just, just getting your mind in the right headspace and just breathing and being like, look, as long as you feel like you put in the hard work, like you trained your ass off, right? Like there's nothing more that you can do except like Agatha said, like just wait. Now I'm ready to go. So within that time, it's like you just got to do what you got to do to keep yourself busy, but do it in a good way that's productive. Go for a walk, read a book, sleep 8 hours, make sure you're getting in your nutrition. I know some people, I've kind of gotten into breathing exercises. I know some people are kind of like think that's a little woo woo, but um, I find that it helps. I enjoy it. There's no harm, even maybe if I placebo myself, there's no harm in it. I still feel better afterwards. So,
Hmm.
like, who cares? But yeah, so what about you? Let's hear
Can I just
what do
ditto
you
everything you
do?
said?
Yeah.
No, but honestly, so mostly what you said, the biggest thing for me is going for walks outside to get my mind off of like thinking about that meal all the
And
time.
outside
Um,
specifically, unless you're
yes,
like in the north, but
outside.
outside, walking outside in
Put a jacket on. I don't care how cold it is. It's a big deal. It's a big
it
difference. I used to walk
has
outside
to,
when it was like 30 degrees,
yeah.
way shorter walks, but like it
But
still would
it's
help me.
walking outside is very different than walking on a treadmill.
Yes.
So when I say walk, we're walking outside. And that
Hmm.
is a requirement.
Just like you said with like the stuff you listen to, I don't really do. I mean, I'm probably now gonna do motivational speeches because I've been getting into that just like this year only. But just
Yeah.
in general, I listen to like those podcasts. I don't ever do the murder mystery ones. Like the podcast, I think it's called QR code. Like
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
literally Google QR and like it's like stories and it's like random stories, like it just gets my mind off of like just the me or just listening to like, for example, just like a powerlifting YouTube video about learning. Like that's what I do all the time. So I need to get my mind away from that a little bit. So
Yeah.
yeah, the walking outside, I track my macros. I hit my steps every day, no matter what. Like I already hit them, but I might like right now, like, I'm like averaging 6 out of 7 days a week. I'm like, no, we're gonna hit them every single day. Just sort of
Yep.
moving more because I'm literally not in the gym as much anyway. So I probably should move
Yeah.
more. And yeah, when I do that, and then I do one big thing I do before I go to sleep, I do visualize myself being successful in all of my lifts. Like I
Yep.
like make myself picture the platform and just picture myself hitting it. And I think about all the good lists I had in prep. And if I had any misses, which this is one thing about me. So the last two meets I've done, I missed my last heavy squat. The last
That
two
ain't gonna
meets.
happen again. That ain't gonna happen
It,
again.
it's
We don't let
not,
that
but the
happen.
last two meets, one thing I will say, like it definitely made it tougher for me mentally because I was just like thinking about failing my squat. So I had to force myself. Like I sound crazy. I'm like talking out loud in my room at 10 p.m. and there's no one in the house but me. And I'm like, okay, when I hit this 200, or this like 185 kilo squat, it's gonna be great because I start visualizing
Yeah.
like the fail. So I'll speak out loud like the squat I plan on hitting. And that helps
Yeah.
me just like not reminisce on like, oh, you failed, you failed, you failed. Like
Yeah. I've actually really recently gotten into sports psychology. Now, that is not like my background or area of expertise, so I can't really like provide in-depth knowledge and information on it. But the that is such an underutilized strategy for athletes, that I think could be a game changer if it was something that we focused on more. And what I mean about like sports psychology is the visualization process of you making attempts is one of them. Even some of those like the motivational speeches, as cheesy as it sounds, that's a form of sports psychology because it can be motivating for some people. Right now, I'm reading a book on yoga and meditation. And I know this is another kind of thing of like, this is a little weird. But from what I'm learning and some of the effects that it can have on the brain has been insane to me. And I can't really speak on it because, like I said, I'm not an expert and I don't know enough about it to explain it. But like the way that we can, I don't want to change our brain, but our brain plasticity is a good term for it. And using sport psychology um, is so underutilized at the moment. And I think that there's a huge area for like improvement for lifters, especially when you're stressed and going through the meet week mental breakdown, meet day mental breakdown. Using forms of sports psychology can be super helpful.
have you been doing any actual yoga yourself to help you?
I do
Like,
yoga all the time. Yes, I
oh,
do
okay.
yoga. I do yoga. I meditate. Um, I guess I can say this because it's not, you can delete this if you want to. It's legal in California and it's not illegal WADA, but psilocybin. And not that I can recommend this for any people. Please feel free to delete.
You're
Put
fine.
on a time. um, but meditating on psilocybin is great.
Now you gotta tell us what that big word means, right? Like people are gonna be like, let me Google this. How do you spell it?
Magic mushrooms.
Ooh. Real talk, I was like, I don't know the name, so I'm like, is this a mushroom or just a type of weed
Yeah,
strain?
it's
I'm
this,
like,
and so it's illegal. Well, no, it's not legal. It's not it's not a WADA illegal.
that's what matters.
So, yes. So it's legal as an athlete. It's federally illegal, so I don't know if I should be like telling people that I've tried this, but I mean, we're in California where I live, and you can buy chocolate, literally a chocolate bar, and it has psilocybin in it, and you can dose it, and it's like, yeah, it's like therapy for me. It's been pretty great.
Hey. And if you're
But
in
this,
Jersey, you
and
can find
I'm not, I cannot recommend this, and I have to be so careful when I say this. This is not a recommendation. I am not recommending this to anybody by any means. I'm just off of my own personal experience. So please do not go
You're like,
out.
just to be clear.
Please do not go out and be like, well, Kristen told me to do this. Like, I am not. This
I
is
think
my
everyone who listens to this
opinion.
podcast is a grown
Okay.
person. All right,
I
y'all are
know. I'm
grown.
gonna start
Make your
getting
decisions.
messages and being like,
No, you're not.
"How you do it?"
As long as it's water legal, it does not matter. Like we say
Well,
to
it's
do it.
not
Just
water
like
legal.
TH,
It's just not illegal.
it's yeah, that's what I mean. Just like people ask me all the time about THC. Like, is it legal? Like, am I gonna get like suspended? And like, it's legal outside of competition to have THC in your system. So let's say you got out of meat tested, that's legal. In competition, it's not legal. However, there is a specific threshold that I don't remember off the top of my head, but you can Google it. Specific
Yeah.
threshold where honestly, I remember it being so high that I thought about it really hard, and I was like, I think
The
you would have to be pretty like a pretty avid user of a lot of weed to really hit this
yes.
threshold.
The problem with THC is the half-life. So, it's legal outside of competition, but it can take up to a month, depending on how heavy of a user you are, a month or more for it to get out of your system. So the problem is with THC is maybe you stopped for a couple of weeks, but it's still in your system,
Yeah,
and that's how people get in trouble. So THC is one of those that you kind of have to be a little careful with because the half-life of THC is so long, and especially if you're a chronic user, it can take like a month or two or more even for it to be fully out of your system.
that's
I had
very
a
true.
friend that took 3 months for it to get out of his system.
Okay, so but he probably well, it's all
Oh,
about
he
how
was
much you
like,
use though. Like, are you a pothead? Like, here's the thing.
he,
Like, I think you have
he
to be truly basically a pothead to get popped for THC
yeah,
because I remember, and again, I wish I knew the numbers off the top of my head. I was like asking because like I have a lot of athletes and like let's be real, people use marijuana. So I was trying to figure out how much you can have in your system
yeah.
just to like always know it as I'm going to be coached for a long time. And I'm like, I have athletes who use like gummies daily and they're fine, but they might use 5 or 10 milligrams daily. And if someone's like, they're going to use a lot, if they use a lot more
So,
than that, then yeah, you'll get popped. But like, you can probably still get away with using it daily if you're not like using it all day. It's like once a day in a small dose.
so just doing a quick Google search, but it doesn't say WADA, it just says 150 nanograms, but that just says, oh, USADA, so it's the same thing, 150 nanograms or milliliters. So, yeah, that seems kind of high for me.
It's
I think
high.
if I take an edible, it's like 5 milligrams.
That's what girl. That's
Uh,
what I'm saying. Like it's high. Like you really have to be
Actually,
high
I cut
to
it in
have to
half.
meet.
I'm such a little bitch. I have the 5 milligrams and then I cut it in half because the 5.5 is too much.
That just means you have a low
Oh my
tolerance.
gosh.
That's
I know,
good.
because I'm just not a pothead. That's why.
Me either. And after this show, people are like, so yeah, Solana and Kristen just do
You're
shrooms and
like,
like edibles all day. Like, yeah,
Solana
yeah,
and Kristen are just druggies that just get high and do mushrooms and meditate all the time. That's the secret to success.
yes, that's the real secret. But anyway, that was a while. Okay, so yeah, that part.
Anyway,
That's how we prep mentally for meet day. No, but even the day of the meet, one thing I will say, the day of meet day, really important to me, which I didn't even start till last year. I have to make a new playlist for every meet or just add to my playlist. I have to make sure it's music that I'm currently into. I don't know about you, but I personally like my taste will just change so often. But if my music is off on meet day, it will literally make me not it won't make me miss a lift, but it's just like I'm just like great. I feel unprepared. Like I feel like I'm not right in the zone I want to be in because like the music's just not hitting right. And like that's a
oh,
big
I
deal
get
for
it.
me. Like I used to be that person who goes to the gym, be like, no music, because at the meet, you don't know what you're gonna hear. And I totally changed. Like music can make my workout so much better if it's like the right music at the right time.
100%. What's your PR song?
Oh, what was it last time? Hold up. I don't even remember because it changes.
Oh my
It
God.
changes every meet. I am that person. Okay, right now I'm obsessed with Tim's. So like the last meet, I literally had just whatever was on Tim's album in my ear.
I have the same two PR songs that I've listened to since I first started powerlifting.
Okay,
Fade to Black by Metallica
okay,
and Low Life by The Weeknd. Two very
okay.
different genres,
They
two
are very
very, very
different.
different genres.
Ooh, my other song at Carolina Prime Time, where I went 9 for 9, I actually had like a great meet. It's a song
Yeah,
called Bam Bam by Camila Cabello. It's like a Spanishy song
yeah, yeah, yeah.
featuring Ed Sheeran. I don't have like the hard. I have some hardcore songs in there, but like I don't really listen to it on the way to PR. I'm like dancing when I'm about to
Yeah,
PR.
you
I'm like,
gotta be
ooh, this is a
like,
nice vibe. Like,
oh, see, I'm more like the get angry, like
let the
internally
bodies
though,
hit
because
the
if
floor.
you see me on the platform, I'm so chill and like quiet, and you're like, this girl has no emotions. But on the inside, I'm like, let's fucking go.
I will say though, for the squats, sometimes I will switch my music to something really intense. That's quite explicit.
Yeah, you need to hype yourself.
Oh my
So,
god. You know what else? One more song I love. This is really short. The Adonis interlude from Creed 3. Yo, that song, I love it. It's the first song you hear, I think, in the movie. I'm
okay,
obsessed. It just makes you feel like you're about to go fight.
nice. That's exactly what I want to do when I'm at a powerlifting meet, is just go fight all of my opponents.
Yes.
Joking, 100% joking. I
Oh
love
my
everyone
god.
that I compete with.
You need to chill. You acting like people take you too seriously. If people really think you're a violent human after saying you want to fight on the platform, people need to chill out. Like, you good.
I swear I'm nice, mostly.
uh that's kind of everything I can
I
think of
think
for
that's
mentally preparing on me too.
all I got. That's all I got.
I mean, the obvious is like have your game plan ready, but we said that multiple times, y'all. So at this point, you go to meet without any numbers in mind. I can't help you. I don't know why you didn't think about that in advance. Uh, I have a list of first, second, and then my third attempt has
Yeah,
2 to 3 options. Be feeling real good, be feeling all right, and oh no, we have the oh no option. Like, shoot,
yeah.
okay, we just trying to survive. Okay,
So Solana and I basically didn't give her a choice. I am forcing her to do this with me, but her and I are going to come out with a powerlifting 101 meet day guide, which is going to include pretty much everything and everything that you could possibly think of that you would need to be prepared on meet day and leading up to meet day. She hasn't officially said yes, but I'm going to make sure on the
I said
podcast.
yes.
What are we saying? Is
Yeah,
that a yes? Okay.
yeah, we can be done
You
with that
heard
by
it.
next week. It's
You
like
heard
90% done.
it. Well, I have to make it pretty, which is the hard part, actually.
I'll talk to you about it after. I
All
can
right,
do
cool.
that myself, but not
All
myself.
right. All right. Sounds good.
Okay, cool.
Well, this was a great power in lifting podcast. As always, thank you for having me.
Of course. And y'all, catch you next time on the Power and Lifting Podcast.